Whenever I have a student who's having trouble getting their strumming to sound smooth and natural, I administer this test. And I'll show you exactly what's going on there during this lesson. But before we do that, I want to talk about why this works. The whole point is to isolate the upstrokes, because that is a massive weak point for many guitar players. Downstrokes usually sound good. You know, your arm is moving with gravity, which naturally helps the pick glide across the strings and produce a really nice sound. You know, most people can make a really pleasant sounding downstroke on their very first lesson. The downstroke also happens exactly with the beat, so it's easy to count it out going 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, everything lines up. Now, flipping that around, in order to get a nice sounding upstroke, we have to angle our pick like this. And getting used to changing the angle between downstrokes and upstrokes, it doesn't feel very natural, especially when you're first starting guitar. And even more importantly, the upstrokes happen between the beats. So you have to develop a sense for it and feel out that space between the beats. 1 and 2. You know, or else it's going to sound kind of off. And those are the two things that I want to work on in this lesson. And then I'll show you that test that I administer with my students so that you have something to use as a benchmark and see where you're really at with your sense of rhythm. Now, really quick before we get started, I have a bunch of resources designed to help you with guitar that you should definitely take advantage of. There's my free ebook, which has a ton of chord shapes, strumming patterns, progressions, you know, all this stuff for you to practice and to get better at guitar with. I'll put a link to that down below. Also down below, you'll find links to my courses. There's my beginner's course. I also have a course that focuses specifically on strumming, and I'll put links to all that down below as well. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and do all that stuff that helps me get my lessons out to help people like you learn guitar better. Now, on to our lesson. The very first thing that I'd like to address is the tone of our upstroke, you know, getting a good sound. Because if you have your pick the wrong way, it kind of rakes the strings, it provides resistance on your upstroke, and it slows down your rhythm and kind of sets it off a bit, right? So if the mechanics are smooth, we'll be able to 100% focus on the rhythm, which is the actual important part. So first, I'd like to begin by muting the strings of the guitar. And for our downstroke, the pick is angled like this. You know, so you could have it parallel to the strings. That makes an abrasive sound. You angle it a bit and it smooths it out. And for the upstroke, we have to adjust the angle the other way. You know, and that gives you a smooth sound. That's happening in like super slow motion. You know, when you're actually playing, like when you're playing kind of quick, what needs to happen is that your wrist bobs back and forth, and that's what's going to change the angle of your pick. I'm sure you've heard somebody say that you got to strum with your wrist or that you have to have a loose wrist, but I don't think that's really descriptive enough. You know, the movement that rotates your wrist actually comes from your forearm rotating back and forth. You know, so when people say it's all in the wrist, what they really mean is that your wrist has to be loose. You know, you don't want any tension. And with a loose wrist, your forearm and your elbow are doing all the work to get your hand to go down and up and change angle. So I want you to just try that, you know, just kind of wave your hand up and down and focus on rotating your forearm. As you go down, it rotates that way, and that way your pick, you get that lovely angle, and then it kind of naturally comes out and it's ready for the upstroke. As you come up, you rotate your forearm back in. So you just graze the strings down and up, focusing on that rotation. And when we work on strumming really slowly, we're all gonna lock up a little bit. So we wanna maybe jiggle out our wrist by going a little bit faster. You could do it in the air at first, you know, and just get a feeling for what it's like when you're actually strumming up to speed. Then you go back to going slow, just to really make sure that you're accurate with those mechanics, and then go fast again. You know, you go between slow and precise and then fast and loose. You know, when you go slow, you're making sure everything's right. You're building up that accuracy. And when you go quickly, you're getting the feel for a realistic performance speed. Because the truth is, Going this fast, like, that's not even that fast in the grand scheme of things. You know, I remember the first time I tried to play I've Just Seen a Face by the Beatles. That's a fast strumming pattern, you know, and to do something like that, you really need to be able to loosen up and take advantage of the forearm muscles handling the work, you know, your elbow handling the work while your wrist stays loose. And that's a process to get there. Either way, that's the first exercise, you know, going slow and accurate, focusing on that rotation and then going quick. Now we're going to change it up a little bit. We're going to miss the strings on the downstroke and just do the upstrokes. And I don't care how the timing works out. Once again, it's all about making it feel good. We just want to have nice sounding upstrokes. We don't want it to be like digging in. You don't want to feel resistance. You want it to feel smooth. You know, and we're going to add the timing in a minute, right? So we got to get the mechanics down first. Just doing this. And then we do it a little bit quicker. You know, we experiment with the tempo a bit, but don't go so fast that it all falls apart, right? You just go slow and accurate, and then a little bit quicker. And if you're not feeling it, go back to what we were doing before with the down and upstrokes, you know, doing it step by step. If you want, you can also throw in some chord shapes at this point, see if they sound nice and smooth. And, you know, once we're at that point, we can add the ever important element of rhythm to the equation. And I'd like to start with the exact same thing, missing on the downstrokes and then playing the upstrokes with muted strings. And we're going to add some basic counting. As we miss the strings, we'll count the numbers. 1, and then we're going to play our upstroke without saying anything. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're basically counting 1, 2, 3, 4 as we miss the downstrokes, and then we're playing the upstrokes. Kind of like the number and then the upstroke. They end up making a rhythm together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And we want to focus on keeping a really steady rhythm. You know, the upstrokes are like a reaction to the beat, and they happen exactly halfway between beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. After you do that exercise, instead of counting 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going to set our metronome to 60 beats per minute, and we're going to do the exercise that I opened up this lesson with. So the metronome's counting for us. We miss on the clicks, miss, miss, and then we play those upstrokes. Listening to the click and the upstrokes combine into like this perfectly steady da, 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 da kind of rhythm. And from there, you can play with the tempo a bit. You can go a bit quicker. Sometimes it's easier, faster, you know, it's just something worth experimenting with. This is 88. And this is the ultimate test. If you can do this and it sounds good, you know, it sounds perfectly even, you are well on your way to performing with that feeling or that groove that people talk about. You know, whenever I see people who have trouble really locking into the rhythm, it has to do with the upstrokes. And that's the whole point of this lesson. You know, we want to get our upstrokes sounding good, feeling good, and being very precise rhythmically. And if you're having trouble with that, final thing you can do is focus on counting. You know, you let the metronome click along and you just pat your chest or your lap with your strumming hand on the beat, and then you say and between the beats. And. You know, do that a little bit slower, maybe at 60. And. It's all about hearing those two rhythms working against each other. And that is where I'm going to leave you, is with all those exercises. At this point, you can go back through the video and just kind of go through them one at a time, get used to them. I'd love to hear where you're at, you know. You can try that test and tell me how you're doing. Like maybe rate yourself out of 10. Let me know in the comments down below. And if you want some more ways to improve your strumming, like I mentioned earlier, I have my complete beginner course, Learn Guitar Once and For All. That's going to help you with the chords, strumming, learning songs, and playing them all the way through, you know, doing all that kind of stuff. But if you're already pretty good with your chord shapes and you just want to sharpen up your strumming strumming and kind of hit the next level. You know, maybe learn how to play and sing at the same time, how to hear rhythms and be able to copy them without really having to think about it. I have my course, Strumming Made Simple. I'll put a link down below for that as well. Otherwise, have a fun time practicing. Don't forget to like, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff that's going to help this channel and help me deliver lessons to you so that you can have more fun practicing guitar. Take care, and I'll see you soon.